Hello, good evening. I don't hear Mark.
Disclaimer: the information and education material contained herein is meant to promote the general understanding and dialogue of GAN's processing. Such information is not meant or intended to serve as a substitute for a healthcare professional's clinical training, experience, or judgment. For patients and individuals, such information is not to be a substitute for professional medical, therapeutic, or healthcare advice or counseling. For medical issues or concerns, including decisions about medications and other treatments, readers, viewers, listeners should always consult their physician or, in serious cases, seek immediate assistance from emergency personnel. Prescription information, procedures, and use of medical devices information should be undertaken only by properly trained and certified medical personnel. We specifically disclaim any warranties, express or implied, including implied warranties of merchantability or fitness for a particular purpose. Such information is provided, as is, and is believed to be accurate at the time of its publishing, but it is the viewer's job to evaluate the accuracy of any information found in this presentation. Every case presented is of their own experience, applied by themselves for themselves, and it applies to their case only. Every person experiencing health problems should seek professional medical advice and consult their course of treatment with a doctor. The processes of plasma balancing described herein are a natural process which supports the body but does not replace medical advice or therapies one is already subject to.
An amazing event happened on planet Earth in the beautiful city of Beijing, China. The cosmic ray technology was shown for the first time to the public by the financial arm of Keshe Foundation, the American Mark Ray Corporation, which is traded on the US stock exchange. Mr. Keshe himself went to China to show creation of materials from the magnetic fields by using obsolete technology, or what we call rotating gas reactors with electric motors. He's using these old reactors as a starting point for humanity to slowly accept the evolution in science and technology. For 3 days straight, the reactors were run and shown live on Zoom so that anybody from around the world who wanted to could come in and see. Black particles like dust start appearing on the white paper sheets around the reactors. These particles are being created through the reactors and the fields of the universe and the inertia of our planet. They are not coming from the room. There were 4 sets of pairs of reactors with red and green gases spinning in them. We were told they were not CH3 and CuO, but something else. They were set up in a star formation on tables inside the front windows of the Intercontinental Hotel. Anybody passed on the street could see them. White papers and spoons were spread around the reactors to catch the materials being formed from the fields. Some knowledge seekers were able to capture on video when black specks suddenly appeared on the paper, like out of thin air. It was very interesting to witness when energy first appears in the matter state. As time went on and the fields built up and changed strength, the specks formed into bigger pieces and some elongated, and some changed color into gold. This is the first time the public has been able to freely witness the creation of matter from energy. At the end of 3 days, Mr. Keshe collected more particles and showed everyone attending. An interesting thing occurred. When he touched the black dust on the paper with his finger, it turned gold. He said it interacted with the fields of the inertia of the earth through his finger. This phenomenon was written about in ancient times when the Greek god Midas touched things and it was said they turned to gold. What we witness here is how everything in the universe is created, from ourselves to the planets and even cancer.
And welcome each and all to the Keshe American Knowledge Team, otherwise known as the University of the Universe, not because of this particular show or its participants, but because we're sharing universal knowledge. And again, what we saw is something that happens in space, and you wonder why space is peaceful, because they create everything they need out of the field interaction or through their wishes. And this is something we haven't understood because we've been thinking so deeply in the matter state. So hopefully we have a great program prepared for you today in a way. I don't know exactly where we're going to go, but it all depends on some of the others who are here who wants to interact or take us or point out different things. But we certainly are going to review the World Peace Treaty because this is what the whole process is about. It's not the end of the process, but it's just another step in getting to the next step, which is a larger interaction with the larger family, which we refer to as the universal community. And of course, more and more of this is actually being talked about openly. I know years ago, if you would have talked about UFOs or others, perhaps from the same creator as you, or maybe from a different creator, but now we know they're all from the same creator, you would have been thought of as maybe a little touched. You're not speaking the way the others, but now more and more it's being confirmed through science and, of course, through the Keshe Foundation that there's life, everywhere across the universe in every square meter, from the soul of this planet to the soul of the creator, and probably even beyond as we're finding more and more about this universal knowledge. And it really reflects on us, and it's a lot about finding out about how our system works and how creation works. And I was just amazed to hear Mr. Keshe was saying how the prophets were illiterate. Then when I went to go back and look at it, usually illiterate means you can't read or write. But he did, I believe he did say they were illiterate, but illiterate to the process of creation. Again, not thinking too far out of the matter state. So we have a beautiful universal teacher, universal knowledge. And again, he's the teacher for himself, and is sharing that knowledge with us. And it's for you to pick it up and investigate it and become one of these universal teachers, perhaps, or perhaps another position. As he said, the possibilities are unlimited once we understand how we can move and create and sort of ride that soul of the man across the universe in many different shapes and forms. And of course, the creator is that common denominator. But before we usually go any further, we review the World Peace Treaty. And this is part of the whole ethos of the Keshe Foundation, finding peace within yourself first, and whatever that is to you. Again, your heaven could be my hell, and my hell could be your heaven. So, what does peace sort of mean to you? And can we examine ourselves a little bit deeper to see how perhaps unpeaceful or peaceful we are? And I know the more peaceful you become, the closer to the creator you move, and you start acting and imitating the creator, the further you go away with the killing and the destruction. And this is what we haven't fully understood. And as Mr. Keshe said in this last one, we haven't even fully understood the creation of emotion or love. But as far as love goes, we want to acknowledge everyone's presence here and thank you for participating in this. This is something I'm going to start practicing more, as Mr. Keshe says he does, with every one of his partners. And again, maybe that partner could be a tree, a plant, an animal in the household, or something else, perhaps even your lover, which is very important and maybe will help to improve that people can actually save their own relationships by reconfirming that love. So we're going to cover that. But before we go any further, let's just review and acknowledge the World Peace Treaty, which is, again, can be found on the Keshe Foundation or any search engines. This is the document the world leaders will sign, whether they sign it with a pen or the pen in their soul, as Alex likes to say. You don't necessarily have to sign it with the pen, but just have those intentions that you want to move and become a more peaceful individual or entity. Remember, creating peace within yourself first. And of course, we have ways. There's a game called Peace and Enlightenment, which we'll share momentarily. So, would anyone like to read the World Peace Treaty? if you're excited about peace and enlightenment and becoming, moving closer to the Creator, please open your microphone. If not, I'll read it.
As citizens of the earth from this moment on, accept to lay down all tools of aggression and war. I shall never think about getting involved or incite war or develop or use any tools of war on this planet or in space. And to this I all agree and swear with our or my family, council, religion, city, town, body, my soul, and my signature. And then this witness, after signing this treaty, be proud to display this certificate wherever you consider being important to you, that everyone can see and know your ethos to fellow men and the mankind and other creative beauties of the Creator.
Beautiful. Thank you.
That's it.
Beautiful. Any comments from anyone? Again, we're creating a sort of a matrix of peace and enlightenment through many of the things Mr. Keshe is setting up, like the cosmic ray material, the Keshe coin, the Mark Ray Corporation. I sort of made a little list. We have the Keshe coin, the knowledge from the 3I, and a number of other things like the One Nation Network. So we're creating a peaceful and enlightened environment. But the other matrix or the other environment of the current structure is still existing and will exist until people start to migrate away from the whole ideas. And as Mr. Keshe said, the 3I's work, it's not over. It's just sort of made us more adaptable to other energies or other fields. And Mr. Keshe is incorporating this into some of the work he's doing in what they call transfer sessions or transmission sessions, where they can learn to move these emotions. And I think this is happening in the workshop and also in this gameplay. So this is our World Peace Treaty. Again, finding peace within yourself first before the others. And that's a monumental task. When I see this part here about tools of aggression and war, you know, most of us be thinking in the matter state of the missiles and the tanks and the guns and the rest. But how about what we do within our own structure? These tools of thinking and speaking, are those tools or could be used as tools of aggression and war? And this is what I'm trying to, in a way, smooth out a little bit more or polish up the idea of thinking, speaking, and acting good. And let's just see if I have the gift of the three wise men. And this creates a beautiful shielding around yourself when you can think, speak, and act. I'm not there. I'm probably pretty farther away than I think I am, but I'm trying to move in that direction where this idea of war can all happen within your own thinking. And again, I think we think a million more times than we speak. And we probably speak many more times than we act, because that just would seem to me a natural progression. So if you can tame it and bring these into balance, it's not a job that finishes. As we know, I think the Creator is still taming emotions of anger and jealousy or other emotions, same as we do, made man in the image of myself. The sun has to move in millions of miles in different directions to sort of counterbalance the solar system and the rest. So this idea of taming or getting out of balance and trying to bring back yourself into balance is part of this whole process. But if you can apply the thinking, speaking, and acting good, I think you'll find, if I bring up the other little slide, you will be proud of the work you do, because you're really elevating or reflecting the light of the Creator. You're adding to rather than taking away from others. And you'll be proud of the person you are, or proud of the person you are, and you'll be proud of the difference you're making just by employing that sort of idea. And this is what we're learning about our energy dimension. It's much more powerful than we've ever considered it to be. But we just speak sometimes aimlessly, and of course we entertain other energies within our own universe, within our structure, and this is something that can be balanced out. because I think you're creating even at that level, even though there's nothing, you think nothing is happening with your physicality. But that's just the way I'm seeing it. And of course, as we become more peaceful, I think the technology gets revealed more and more. But much about understanding emotions for sure in this last workshop. But I thought we would just take a quick look because we were on the peace treaty. And if I go to the 622nd workshops, and he was talking about this game of peace and enlightenment, which we'll show momentarily. Once you register, as you've done, your computer, your laptop, your mobile phone has become part of the network that no one can interfere with. And you play the game, but at the same time, you support the whole structure of the World Peace Treaty. So how can you play a game and support a structure of a World Peace Treaty? Would anyone like to reconcile that? I know he said the more you play the game, the more the ethos sinks in. And of course, part of the ethos is the thinking, speaking, and acting good. And of course, we're here to serve and not to be served. Stronger feeding the weaker rather than the stronger taking from the weaker. Whoops, sorry. So playing this game, how is it making one more peaceful? And we've heard reports from people playing the game and being or sensing some sort of peace within themselves. So by playing a game, we can bring peace. He said, by playing that game, you're supporting the World Peace Treaty. Anyone want to elaborate on that? How do they see the two connected? Or is what I'm saying, by putting yourself in sort of this incubator of the game in a way, I'm seeing it as an incubator now based on the question Mr. Keshe answered about the feeding the baby when the mother's milk wasn't available, and then how he said we don't have to put the baby in an incubator, we can transfer the fields. And this is what he's been talking about the whole time, that through this gameplay, the ethos starts to sink in. And I think enlightenment as well, again, enlightenment would be becoming more peaceful, but the knowledge, he said, I remember him specifically mentioning the compression technology that was being taught will be embedded somehow in the game. And I think this is why they've studied the 3I and the transfer of these emotions or energies that they're working on, connecting you to universal fields and universal energies, perhaps even through this game. And that's why I think they've raised what we were talking about earlier, how many visits to a country, because this keeps you in the game in a way, your physicality in the game, that you can be in that sort of incubator. And of course, it has many more features like a marketplace and a chat and some other things. And of course, the dimension of the cosmic ray energies is going to be delivered through, if we go to the Keshe Foundation store. And please interrupt me if you have a comment you'd like to make. I think this is the store. Let's just go to all products. And as Mr. Keshe said, the store is about to disappear. I do have the Shopify, which was mentioned. I don't know if they're continuing that way, but this will be, I think, where the Keshe Foundation products will be showcased in the coming time. I believe the Keshe Foundation current store will disappear. So this is the One Nation Network, and this is where the game of peace enlightenment is embedded. You don't necessarily need to purchase or gift to humanity a One Nation Network to play the game, but I do believe you'll need a wallet to play that game. And of course, you can go on getplasma.org and sign up for the game, or download it to your system, however you have to do it. And then, of course, set up your password and name on that game. But here's the actual game, which is in its beta test. And this is what Mr. Keshe was saying. If you know how to play the game, you can actually bring yourself out of a poverty condition. And of course, it looks very simple. And I was equating that to what he said about the Cup of Life 1 and 2. He said it looks simple because we designed it that way. But it's so deep that it would take man centuries to understand what's going on in the cup. Now, I think the game could be even deeper than that, but more and more will be revealed about this game and more features will be added. And this is where the ethos becomes ingrained, I think, within your own structure as you play, or perhaps other enlightenments, just becoming peaceful. This is why he's trying to keep you in the game for an extended period of time, because you're actually, it's a cover, as he said, for the freedom of the man. And I think that freedom perhaps comes with the peace that we're all looking to achieve. Anyone want to add anything or say anything about this game before we move on? Available to everyone. And of course, there's another caveat to join the association that's part of this as well. I think this gives you some other privileges within this thing. But this is, in a way, an alternative to the current structure, or this is what we would call one planet, one nation, one race in a virtual sort of setting, soon to be manifesting in a much different way, let's say. But this is the beginning of setting up a sort of a different matrix in a way. We were talking about that there's one matrix of the killing and destruction and war on this planet, and we're setting another environment or another matrix up for enhancing enlightenment and peace in all of us. And again, I'm not there yet, so don't think just because my mic is open, I'm an angel or I've arrived, or I'm just lecturing the others. I'm on the same sort of trip and experiencing how I can improve my existence with myself and with other entities, as this will be part of your existence as you go into that dimension of energy, or when you're
Yeah.
Yes, please.
I had a couple more things here that I'm learning, and that is, I used to think about economizing distances and not making long trips from place to place, but visiting neighboring countries, but it doesn't seem to make any difference here in this game. Just it takes a tiny bit longer to get there, maybe. The other thing is, I used to always kind of, when I first started, consider the jet lag in between. And I think we're eliminating that also if
Yeah.
we are transmuting.
Yeah, again,
Um,
in transmutation, and this is the way the creator travels, whether you go a mile or 100 million miles, it's just exactly in the same amount of time, instantaneous. And this,
yeah, and the other one was, I think that may have mentioned that too. I used to avoid anything like an energy drink in my own personal life because I would stick with plain water instead of energy drinks, because they usually got colors in them and flavors and all that kind of stuff. But these energy drinks are apparently different. So, but if initially that took me a moment to adjust to taking energy drinks. So anyway, those were the 3 points that I was just thinking about.
yeah, very good. And again, there's more built into this game. It looks quite simple, maybe not really exciting, but the profound work is going on in the subconscious level, perhaps even touching the RNA and DNA through the fields. And this is how the structure will be gamed. And one of the motivators will be for people to get out of poverty. And once they start catching on to this, I think it'll catch on in a big way. And especially if some of the world governments start to see that they've received cash coins and they actually encourage their own citizens to play the game. It might be the smaller, less developed countries, but they may, again, as Mr. Keshe said, these underdeveloped ones may actually go past the West's technology, since we're so not ready to accept something like this, as most of the structures need to be paid off and the rest, where the other lesser developed don't have those structures to amortize or pay off, and they can move without encumbrance in a different direction, as the West will be saddled with the loans and the bank and the infrastructure it's created, almost like it's tied itself down. But again, it'll be an individual thing, I think, as people choose to operate in both of these You'll still have to go to your job, I would imagine, but less and less people apparently are going to have jobs in the upcoming period. As Mr. Keshe said, the Keshe coin will become the effort of the man. So I think all of that'll apply to all of us, and for more than reasons probably than we understand at the moment. Any other comments? But this is the biggest gift, Mr. Keshe said, I could give to humanity, but it's up to us to support it and develop it. This is also in its infancy. So let's go to the announcements. Again, the Keshe Foundation store, they're going to show some of the products in the store, some of these new plasma or resin products where the material is embedded within the system, and we'll see some of those that are offered here. And there's many, many more products. As I said, when people realize that they have 1,000 Keshe coins and they can be used within the Keshe Foundation store, even though it won't be to buy 100 of these items and resell them so you could get some physical money. It'll be monitored, I think, but this will give people, again, realizing that they have a resource that they haven't tapped into, and let's give it a try and see if this makes our life a little easier, or maybe takes some pain away, or does some other things, brings peace and balance into the home. I'd like that, so I'll take some of those Keshe coins and that I've been gifted for free. I have nothing to lose, and I'll see if I can bring them into the house and bring peace and balance to myself and my family structure. And as we say, peace in the home is priceless. Ask any general when they walk through the door frame of their home. Not every general, but some generals have to take sort of a different position when they walk through that door frame of their home where they live. So bringing peace in the home is priceless. And these technologies, again, it's in the energy dimension and for the elevation of the soul, even though you see the physical products there. As he said, the store will grow into tens, 5 digits, or perhaps even 6 digits of product in the coming time. But let's go to the announcements. Mr. Keshe is looking for specialists across the board. You can write to info@keshe.foundation and describe your specialties or how it could dovetail with the work of the Keshe Foundation. Or, as he said, many scientists are on the move. I think this was the second week in a row where he's looking for specialists or scientists. So we're going to look at some of the offerings from the store first, and very soon we all should have 1,000 Keshe coins, and hopefully you'll be allowed to spend a little bit of it. It's actually made to last 100 years, but perhaps you can order some things in the store just with the gift of the coins that you'll be given. We'll see how that plays out. And of course, if you do get a One Nation network, again, playing on your greed, you will be earning 2 Keshe coins a year. I think it's for the first 1,000. Somebody else was saying it was for the first 100, but they're looking to create 10,000 or maybe even more of these units. But you'll be automatically, after paying 3,000 plus the value-added tax, you'll be automatically credited, as I understand it, 2 Keshe coins per year. And of course, you could use those Keshe coins to buy gifts for others. I'm thinking if that's the case, I would like to buy some wallets because you will need this sort of virtual wallet, as I understand it, to store some of your resources and balance the books, I guess, in the marketplace and the rest. So again, as you can see, this is the One Planet, One Nation, One Race, and there'll be an energy dimension introduced to this in the very near future, as I understand it, where you could even possibly unplug the One Nation network from the wall, as it would then be able to generate its own power. And through that cosmic ray technology, and of course, Mark Ray is the home of the cosmic ray technology, through that cosmic ray, you could actually order power for your home, for lighting, and power to run certain ovens or other equipment, washing and refrigeration systems that you may have. So this is a much farther out looking, but it's coming quicker than we can imagine. And I believe it's already there. Mr. Keshe says we We need to put some finishing touches on it. But much of this is just, in a way, a game to sort of delay and allow the structure to catch up a little bit, I think. Because many of these systems, as he said, they've made the tires and the seats for the car, and the radio is there, and the transmission and so on. And now they're going to start putting it all together in a much bigger way. And you'll see many things come out in the future. Well, let's go to the announcements. Mr. Keshe can describe it, and he does much better than me since he's creating this technology.
And you can also put questions in the Q&A is best, or also in the chat in Zoom, and also in the chat in YouTube. All right.
I had brought that up to Rick about asking AI about a control center, and perhaps this looks like the worldwide control center for the game of peace and enlightenment, as we see a very similar screen in the background. And we know if 1 billion people are going to bring themselves out of poverty, there's going to have to be some traffic monitoring and maybe some abuse that needs to be handled, or some fine-tuning of the game that was oversaw. So this looks in a way like a control center, but I think it'll be decentralized. There won't be a central control center that I'm aware of, but it'll be as these monitors and other people come into position in the game, they'll individually from their own location perform certain functions to keep the game up to where it should be, and not having the teething problems perhaps it's having today.
Back shortly.
So here's where we're going to look. All these products are in the Keshe Foundation store. And again, we all know that, but for those coming in the future or hearing these.
You'll see that now. Let me get
Yes, these are cosmic ray, what we call materials, which we have launched as packages before in different what we call occasions, and now we are releasing these on a what we call continuous basis. These are all what we call resin product for different occasions, which is coming up. They'll be priced in the next day or so, hopefully, and then you should be able to purchase it directly. We do not do the what we call the packages as we used to do, like a Christmas and a New Year packages. These are individual pieces, and if you go through all of them, and then you can see what it is. And it's per occasion. You can what you call order per piece, then as we did it in 500 and 250 and 1,000 packages. This way, every individual person can choose. They are made of different mixture of what we call cosmic ray and gases. And it's a new, what we call a structure, which goes with this one. I'm sure in next day or so, very soon, you will see a launch of a new pen, what we call the paint pen, on the same structure. It's not plastic anymore. You actually hold the whole direct contact with the material. The new, what we call cosmic ray paint pens are a solid state. What it means in the present paint pens, you have a plastic container which still filters energy between the body and what is to be taken out. Now you actually hold directly the two energies. You create a closed circle. And these are the new extensions of the energy systems which we have put out. And you will see it has been sent to you, but has not been what we call put out or priced out, but is part of the new product range, which the Keshe Foundation lives there. You don't need necessarily to buy it for Easter because it's a rabbit. These you can buy it as a decoration and put it in the house for transfer of energies. And they all have confirmation, because we had a lot of problem with people transferring like cosmic, what we call ray materials. But now as a resin is inside, is within. For example, in the past we had a problem with paint pens in some countries because of the liquid inside it or whatever, could not be done. Now is a resin. Anybody around the world can buy the paint pens. And this is part of the structure of bringing in peace, bringing in what we call happiness into the house, change of the energies. You just put it as per item. And this allows us to be able to transfer a lot of it.
And again, a lot of people don't like to see GANs in glass bottles. I guess it gives them a bit of a creepy feeling or something, like this is very strange. I think I've had that with visitors here, but these are very innocuous looking products and they have a nice beauty to them. And they can just be put up and they're quite functional as well as nice to look at if somebody likes rabbits or has a chicken thing. And again, bringing peace into the home and balance is a priceless endeavor. And you don't have to understand how the technology works. You just set them up or suspend them, as some of these are on strings to be suspended, and let them sort of balance out the environment.
Have a child which is sick. We are developing technologies to be able, as a toy, to bring that change. Children don't like to take medicine. We'll be coming the same way. In the coming months, as part of the Keshe Foundation reorganization, we will receive documentation and materials worldwide licensed for the first time for the viruses, which means we'll handle through a structure how to overcome the viruses in a way it does not exist in the world of medicine. And this will become part of our structure of the work. And you will see massive amount of pictures and items which will be continuously be added to, and we try to keep it in a way workable for all of us in so many ways of understanding how things work. You can use it for Valentine, and you can make it for Easter, but at the end, at this final point, is how we enjoy connection and understanding of the use of the energy field. In the next couple of days, we already made this offer to some of the retailers. If those are in the retail side of the Keshe Foundation, have access to charities or whatever, that they can give the resins freely in the hand of the what we call people who need it. The Keshe Foundation has set up a structure to support that. And all the what we call our gel packs, as of this week you will see, will be reduced to 10 and 20 euro per pack, depending on the size. And we have a large number of the pillows which we went through to restructuring of the Keshe Foundation, changing the pillows to $29.99 for some, for the small ones, and to $49 for the larger one, that we can move a lot of things out of the way, that we can accommodate the new changes and the new product range which is coming into the structure of the Keshe Foundation. So in the next few days, look for what we call the Keshe Foundation pages and see what you want from it and what suits you. And everything will be priced down to come in through. There's a lot of other more products which is already being produced and will be added to this range. And it's mainly to change, because we understood a lot of people have problems even in partnerships, that they want to change the environment of the house, but the partner is allergic to this and that. These are decorative items, they will do the same. You have a child which is disturbed, this does the same. Put it around the bedroom. We've done this in different ways, in different trials, where we just leave the bottle of gases, and people don't like to see this. This is a decorative, but does the same thing. The size, the shapes brings the dimension of the change, and then it's for you to see how things done. In a, what we call a structured way, we introduce new materials, and as I said, we are looking for what we call resellers of the products of Keshe Foundation worldwide. It has to be a continuous, not just buying order for me to buy and just for what I want. This is a new product range, our manufacturing site for distributing, and new product range will come, which part of it will be high advanced technologies.
All right, well, that's our excerpt regarding products.
So the store will be overflowing with these types of products, great little gifts, and perhaps you can purchase some with your Keshe coins and give a testimonial in the future of how they've impacted or brought balance, or maybe you stopped going to counseling, marriage counseling, and this has actually brought a solution without you working that hard to do it. As he said, this is a very misunderstood, let's say, technology. And it's hard for the knowledge seekers, or perhaps they're not able to replicate this, although we're encouraged to do that, to try and to make certain products. But as I said, I think Mr. Keshe is at least a year or two ahead of us in some of this technology. But we're just trying to understand how it works and how it can bring peace and enlightenment without actually knowing, like our cell phone. I don't need to build the cell phone. I just need to purchase it, or the airplane. I just rent a seat on the plane or whatever. At this point, we're not understanding fully how much of this is done, and neither are many of the leading scientists on this planet. But as Mr. Keshe said, more and more of them, as they enter into these research facilities that the Keshe Foundation is setting up, more and more of them will start to understand more.
Let me get back to
I think you received some things on your other link, link to new products.
Yes, I've got.
So that we can put those up. These are what was old and new, and is partially is available to reseller section. And if the knowledge seekers would like to access to it.
And think a little deeper. Perhaps we're thinking about our own home and everything else. He said everything else is connected. All of these systems are connected together. So just by putting these in the home, as he said, with those gas units, it'll start to seep out, the electric and gas units. The plasma fields will start to seep out in the home, and then on the street and in the neighborhood and so on. So these products, these little innocuous looking little plasma cosmic ray resin material items, will be part of contributing to the whole structure as well. He hasn't said that, but I'm just thinking, as he said, it's all connected together. So just by putting in these in your home, hopefully they bring peace and balance, but they also probably add to a bigger mesh, that they're part of it. Even though he hasn't specifically said that, I was just thinking that now.
Will be put on later on for the knowledge seekers.
Okay, let me get those open.
Until you find them, we're still looking for scientists who can join Keshe Foundation for different aspects of the space technology, agriculture, medicine, environment, materials. We putting our what we call our request out to international companies.
And again, these are the knit products, or did he call them plushies? This is something an adult or a child could hold, and you may feel the peace well up from inside you. Again, maybe a child is having some nightmares or something else. This could possibly balance that condition out. But these are little plushies, and I know some of the knit ones that were handed out before, it said something about just squeeze it and feel the peace or balance rise up within yourself.
To join us in this endeavor. If you are qualified in any shape, or you sent us a request a couple of years ago or a few months ago, whatever, reposted back to info@keshe.foundation. We don't want knowledge seekers who just do something for a hobby or whatever. We want scientific data. If you have something, you develop something, has to be scientific and has to be, for us, something which adds to our work in the space technology. We're looking for doctors, medical doctors, specialized in certain categories. If you are alternative doctor, especially in what we call herbal medicines, we're looking for that kind of doctors. If you are from China, so it's better for us. If you're a herbal medicine from India or Central Asia, we still would like to look into it. We're looking for people who have a space background, military defense space background, who know about the flights and the rest. We'd like to bring you into research and development of the Keshe Foundation. We're not talking about interaction or start of the work in months. It's immediate. If we see you fit into our program, we call you in, we make you an offer, and it's for you to join the system. If you're in communication satellite system, we are looking for. If you are specialized in AI and computer programming, especially if you're from Iran, we are looking for that kind of expertise. We're looking for people who can plan and are in marketing, international marketing of products. We would like to hear from you and see how we can collaborate with the foundation. If you're running companies in countries with multi-outlets and you have a good base on the internet, we would like to speak to you for the process of the products which are coming in. The Keshe Foundation website, as you'll see today, will be wiped out very soon. That's why we put the products to be cleared out. A newer structure, international structure, will come into operation, which will be delivered in the whole process.
And as I mentioned earlier, it was mentioned in one of the previous workshops that this Shopify will be the home, I believe, unless something has changed in the interim in the last, say, 90 days or more. And this is where you'll find the Keshe Foundation products. I don't know if the store will abruptly shut or just sort of disappear slowly, but we'll see. This is where I think the new platform will be for the Keshe, and apparently it's quite a widely used platform worldwide, but I don't know much about it myself. Anyone would like to add anything?
We are ready to move if we see the right appropriate people. You'll be engaged in the laboratories directly within a few days. If you can move that rapid, we are prepared to accept you. You can go to our human resources side. We go through it. Just because you're a knowledge seeker does not give you any priority. And as we know, a lot of you, if you have a structure in the background, we are prepared to look into it and call and bring you on the full-time employment on the contracts of 12 months to 36 months renewable immediately. I see you're putting a lot of pictures in the background. These are all the, what we call the plushes. They're the new bunch which has been brought out by the, what we call product production. Good.
So I've put the links into the chat here, chats, for the Cosmic Spring 2026 links, and these are some of the new products. Yes. So how are the how is the GANs incorporated into these products, Mr. Keshe, or is
it's inside? It's embedded inside them. These are something we've done for 2 or 3 years now plus. You had the stars and we had the sun and whatever. It's the same process. Now it's additional is done by a lady for us for past years, and this is what she's put out for us.
And again, I know we received one of these little plushy stars. I gave it away to someone, but I saw that inside it, if you can picture a toothpaste tube, but only about maybe an inch and a half long with a cap on it. That's what's embedded, at least at that point in time. Now, these plushies may be, or knit items may be embedded into the material. I'm not sure. But that's what it was at that time.
Do. As you know, these are very limited numbers, these plushies. And the same is with the ganses. Now we have put the special gas packages because a lot of people wanted the package. They don't know what to choose from in the what we call the resin products. So that package has been put back on. You can choose a spring pack or whatever they put on. Make it much easier for people who buy the packages.
We had a question, a couple of questions about products from George. Has a question about the Spring Keshe Gans handmade resin coasters, which we see here.
Yeah.
And he says it's said to be used in pairs. Does the price, is that for one item only or for the two-piece set?
I think it's a piece per piece.
It does mention here, you can ask in the comments section of the product for customization regarding colors for all options or colors and mixing shapes for the two-piece sets. So it seems to indicate that they're two-piece sets.
Yeah, because it's as one piece. Because, for example, you put one on the table, you put the cup, and you put the other one on top of the cup. So
Right.
It's the way you set up these coasters, or you put two cups on it. But primarily, if you remember, we do these water jugs with gas material in, is replacing that because each cup each plate is slightly different, so it charges up very much the same. In a very near future, in a limited number of countries, we will introduce certain products which cannot be supplied to other countries due to taxation and legal terms, where the products will be on a nationwide availability, not only in the Keshe Foundation store, but in retailers, the way we do now in Europe with the pharmacies, the Keshe products. This is a larger scale operation. We'll explain to you, it could be from food to water to other factors. So you can actually buy a Keshe Foundation product as a plasma product very soon in supermarkets as a product for a specific capacity. Also to be done, and then we inform you, we're just about we are in the first stages of production. When the first products are ready to be marketed, we announce in given countries where you actually can purchase these products. Is nation by nation. And then it'll come to the process of how you get access in different nations to the same, or we set up structures in those countries. If you remember, we started this process in a very different way some years ago in a couple of countries, but now Keshe Foundation has concentrated all its efforts in one nation, one country, and all the research and development is pouring into it. And this will be one of them. You can buy literally from plant pots to fish to what they call grocery, developed, marketed on the mass market under the banner Keshe Foundation Plasma Technology. And it'll be the same for the introduction of new, what we call application in the health, that will be coming out. And we're talking in a different scale as part of the process. But it's just wait for about maybe a couple of months, and as the process is completing, we'll bring you into it. and it'll be only for that nation or certain nations, which is can be what we call shifted. Any other question?
Yeah, we have a couple of more questions from George. In this case, I have the picture up. Does the Spring Keshe GAN's handmade resin ornaments, specifically the flat egg with motifs set of 3, could be worn as a gem on a gold, silver, or cotton chain around your neck? Thank you.
We advise you strongly not to put anything like this on your skin. These are ornaments for the environment. We advise you strongly to not use them for holding on your body or whatever, or as a necklace. When it comes, we can't produce really such a thing with them.
And to be clear, it mentions the resin used for the figurines is non-toxic and food safe and odorless, but you're talking about the field effects of the ganses on the skin.
Yes. It's taken a lot of research to find this material. As far as we know, only one company in the world produces these kind of resins. And we pay more for it, and just to be safe. And it can be used as a food product in a way we can use it later on in cups and all sorts of materials.
Okay, well, do these ornaments have to be used in pairs, or do they have the same effect as the resin coasters?
Yes, in a way, yes. You can hang them in a drink. You can hang them in a liquid that it is in the house. It can be done, but you have to make sure they stay safe. They deliberately brought this out, that is food safe, is certified as a food safe product.
Okay, so they wouldn't have to be used in pairs, I suppose, but maybe it's better that way.
Yep. It was originally done for Christmas trees, but interested in different ways, and that's why it's been expanded this way, for the rabbits or whatever, for the Easter.
Okay, next question.
It's very nice, you know, the tradition. I don't know if you have it in the US, I think you have the same, but in Europe, families hide eggs around the garden and whatever, and children go and find it. This is that kind of structure. Or the eggs we put out was for that kind of thing. Because children find it, they keep it, and then it becomes part of ornament, and it affects the environment of the house, the environment of the bedroom they live in.
Would it be okay to keep in a pocket, for example?
Yeah, no problem with it. It's just that don't put it there. Don't put anything with the gases. Long-term touch with the skin.
Right. Okay. Next question from George is, does the One Nation Network unit, could it be plugged into the same outlet next to a Keshe Foundation Maggrav Power Universal System or a Maggrav Power Plasma Generator for better and faster results?
It's all the same. There are different capabilities and they do different things. They don't interfere with each other as such. They connect with each other, but they don't interfere because they're set in a totally different way. It's like a different frequency band, different structure.
Does the concept of better and faster results, is that part of that configuration somehow, or
in the
how do we approach that?
In the future, the plan is that all the systems lock to each other. There is a way to do it. And the present systems are not set up that way with it. There is a method which needs to follow all the systems. All our systems coming up, all the 10,000 ONNs going out are connected to each other irrespective of the internet. They'll be connected there because the design of the plasma antenna is that way. You can't get somebody else coming and connecting into it. It's impossibilities. The 10,000 units only connect to each other. You cannot bring another. If we set up, let's say, another 10,000, we have to find a tool to work with each other, because that 10,000 will be set up in another dimension, another structure.
Okay, another question.
By the way, speaking about ONOs, hopefully the first ONOs should go out if we get it all done before end of the month. And then once, as I said, the first 25, I think they've sorted some of the teething problem. Then the first 25 goes out. We give it a month till what we call hopefully the 21st of March to see any teething problems. And then this first cycle of hundreds will start going every 100 at a time. Yeah.
Okay, George has another follow-up question on, can the Keshe plasma fields absorption butterfly be used on the One Nation network unit, stick on its side panel or hang on?
No, do not do it, no.
Can we put the butterfly on the walls in the room where the unit is
but
placed?
Do not connect it to the One Nation systems. One Nation systems have a special way they're developing the antenna.
So it's okay if it's on the walls in the room, but not on the unit? Is that the idea?
Yes, don't put it on it directly intentionally. Let me explain to you something, bring it to one and all. As I said, we are looking for scientists and the people who are in different fields. We try to set up an environment that all the knowledge seekers live with their families in one campus. We are building a structure that knowledge seekers can transfer knowledge from agriculture into medicine, into space and everything else. In the next few months, those of you who join us or people who come from outside, because now we start taking scientists or people from outside the Keshe Foundation, we're training them, we teach them with the experiment or exercise or whatever, the knowledge of the foundation. You'll be living, or majority of you, in one campus, in one structure. And when we employ anyone, we take the whole family. It's not that I'm going to this place on my own. We are responsible for your children, your family, accommodation, and making sure you work with a peace of mind. To my belief, it's no use bringing pain to people just because others can have a good time when you're trying to keep the family. So if you try to understand, the process is a new space center structure is getting set up, that you all the people who work in this technology literally work in one environment, live, and in a way, we try to make it a bigger family. If you're from different nationality, we even trying to get your favorite food, a supermarket which matches your culture, that everything is our response. Your job is to create systems which creates peace for humanity.
So you can see everything is being handled in the background. Just create systems for peace for humanity, or just create systems for humanity for peace. And I think the work is probably not going to be shared. It's going to be proprietary, but of course you'll have access to the products, and it'll all be overseen by the professor, Mr. Keshe, so that you'll know the products will be fully tested. And many of them have already. So this is the idea of the new research centers. Apparently they'll be sort of cloistered in a way. It won't be revealed where they are, but all accommodations will be made, and apparently this is part of the full employment for those who can match what the Keshe Foundation is looking for. As he said, if you've sent in requests in the past, renew it. Perhaps now is the time. But many scientists are on the move, and I think many scientists are not happy with the scientific work they're doing if they understand the end result of it. Normally, it's all sort of geared towards not all of it, but many of it is the top level is the weaponization of either certain products that we know in biology or weaponization in other certain ways, just to make a better mousetrap in a way, or see if we can kill the other guy more than they can kill us. So I think a lot of scientists are going to perhaps become enlightened that that is not how they should be using their and want to give something back to humanity. So the foundation is setting up the whole structure, the location, the accommodations, even supermarkets and the rest, that they'll be perfectly comfortable. And I'm sure it's going to be an immense environment of peace and balance. Hopefully, this is our wish. Let's continue back. Any comments? And that's, of course, to take the research even further than it is.
This structure is not something we dreamed to do. It's already structured. Number of knowledge seekers who've been around knowledge seekers structure already are working within this structure. It's not the future, it's the present. We do not disclose where the system is taking place. We're working with governments and knowledge of the what we call governments, what we are doing. So when you'll hear more and more about this, is that it's not something that's going to happen in the future. This space center, this structure of bringing all the technologies is already structured. There are scientists who are working in this. Experiments, development, commercialization is already in progress. It's not something we are going to do in the future. So if you have any expertise, if you know anybody in the fields we are looking for, let us know. And then our team will get in touch. And through non-disclosures, you'll never know they join us. They never know the research development. But the Future Space Technology Center has already been set up. Small factories, large-scale development trials is already underway. It's not something we are going, but to our structure, we keep everything very secret, very controlled, but we don't hit what we had in the past. It's not in any country you think it could be. We have well protected our structure, and we are looking for specialists who can literally walk off the street into the lab and work with other scientists for space development, defense technology, space research, in all aspects of the Keshe Foundation. Material, you're expert in it, we want to talk with you. You're a doctor specialized in certain medicine, you're an agriculturist, we are a specialist in desert, in fishery. You can join us as a full-time staff of the Keshe Foundation, international organization.
So again, I don't have any of the details of this whole process. So the only way you would access it is by writing to that, what we put in the chat, info@keshe.foundation. That's the way you'll find out more of the details. He's just giving me sort of the rough approach, but apparently it's not so rough. It's already happening.
Any other news? Any other question?
Okay, any questions or thoughts? I thought we'd play that just for people who may see this in the future and wonder about the store and the products. I think that was a nice overview of some of this new resin, and many, many products will be made in this, as we see the paint pens have taken this shape now, and many other products that you can just set up in the bedroom or in the home, throughout the home, and bring in that piece. And it's connected, I believe, to the larger structure. He hasn't mentioned that, but I do believe it is. I thought we'd go and listen. I mean, as I said earlier in another session, that Mr. Keshe mentioned love about 90 times, and that we need to understand this emotion. And of course, as he said, there's no love in the universe. It's all about giving, unconditional giving. So I thought what he was talking about with that question about there was no breast milk for the baby from the mother. So he talked about an incubator that they had developed, and then further went on to say that we don't even have to put the baby in the liquid of the incubator to feed the soul and the physicality. We can do it in a way by transfer of fields. So this is what's happening in the Keshe Foundation. And then he went on to talk a little bit about the blood and how this reconfirming of the love actually solidifies or maybe extends a better relationship before you let it go sour in a way. And I'm going to start practicing this. As Mr. Keshe says, I say this to all my partners. And maybe he says it again, sometimes on the soul level. And if it's a partner he's cuddling, perhaps using the voice. But this is something I'm going to start practicing. And of course, the Creator sits at the base of all these structures, whether it's a bug, a tree, a planet, a star. And this is who I think would like that acknowledgement. As we've learned through the teachings, the Creator is hungry for you to acknowledge the Creator, and the Creator sits in everything you see and even in structures you can't see. So I think this is something for us to practice. Let's see. Alex, are you ready to go? I know we want to play a couple of questions. Maybe they'll be short. But these, we can't possibly cover it all, but no worries, because these workshops will be opened up for decades and centuries into the future, because I believe there's a lot of hidden material within these done on purpose, that as we start to connect this to that, another workshop here, another workshop there, enlightenment will touch certain people and new creations will come out of this.
By all means, carry on, Mark. I'm almost ready anyway. So
we're going to do the Dome of Peace after these couple of questions. Let's see if we're zeroed in on it. I'll bring up the transcript so we can actually.
XOE in the Q&A who.
I think this is the right spot, but again, I didn't have. Let's see, we're going to go back to 6:30 and we're going to go to about 126, I think is where this particular caption is. We'll just read through it about these newborns. And I know a lot of women have this, and there was big scandals with the milk being contaminated or the artificial one and so on and so forth. But this is something I've never thought of. And this is what I'm equating is happening in a way, if you can, with this game of peace and enlightenment, that this is like a type of reactor or perhaps incubator, where he wants you of your own volition to enter into this game and in a way be processed without you in a way knowing you're being processed, perhaps on the pretext of greed, playing for to gain some resources, let's say, that you didn't have access to. So as he said, they're still playing on the greed of the man. But this is, in a way, a good thing, because through that greed, we'll actually bring ourselves to a better position, or a more enlightened position, I believe. So let's just go back and we'll hear this question about this incubator. And think about the whole network of the One Nation Network, the Cosmic Ray material, the Mark Ray Corporation, the Keshe Coin, the One Nation Network Enlightenment game, and so on, as all being part of this incubation system. Even the little resin items that we saw, as you bring them out or gift them, they become part of this network in a way too. So you can see there's a lot of variety of fields being created here, and done the right way and correctly through the Keshe Foundation.
I see we have a hand up here with Micah, who's the next question. But first, we'll address this. If you wish, Mr. Keshe, it's somewhat medical, but I think we can talk about it. Zoe says, in the case of a newborn, where despite all applied methods, there is no breast milk available for 2 or 3 days, is there a plasma-based solution that can compensate for the lack of colostrum intake from the mother?
I don't understand.
Well, the mother has no breast milk available for the newborn. So is there a plasma-based solution that can compensate for that?
I think you have to understand the reason. It's not just is it psychological? Is it physical? This is a very common thing for the days.
So he's talking about this mother. Is it physical or is it psychological? And we know, just as we saw in the opening video, how those emotions can create certain things within our structure. And I think this is why he's saying, is it physical or is it psychological or emotional or psychoactive, or what was the term we have used in the past?
Weeks, mothers don't produce milk, and suddenly there's a flood of it. Or the brain has a trigger mechanism that has to be done by the doctors. You cannot just jump in and say yes.
So there would be no specific combination of amino acids and so on that can be used.
No. In a coming time, could be a possibility of a solution where you can put a child in a solution that he absorbs all the energy. Like, we're testing this in a very special way. And in the future, it will be available, maybe in 6 months, 12 months' time. Because this needs a special development, and is that you can absorb energy, what you need from the environment. But you have to organize it. At the moment, we are testing some new structures with this, but you should be able to transfer into the mothers in the space don't have a breast in a way to feed because there is no food, they get that way. So we're creating environment. We're bringing some of the top specialists for this job. We have a gentleman from Pakistan who's specialized in what we call fetus development. He is a reputable specialist in this. He's joining us in the research center. And one of his job is that if we can carry the fetus without the womb to survive within the structure of the plasma. He's doing some research at the moment. His final years of his PhD, final weeks of his PhD, and he transfers back to Keshe Foundation for this research. And as I asked him to look at that, we can create a womb of the mother in space-time. We put the children in an incubator when we look after them from 28 weeks, 22 weeks nowadays, and they survive. What about if we create an environment after it? And he understands. And if you come to a research center, you most probably see. And he will join us in the completion of the cycle. Yes, it is possible. You don't have to worry if the mother has the right milk. Child received the right nourishment. This process is not just the feeding, it's supporting the soul and the energy of the emotion. Because we don't look at it just feeding the children. You look at the European American children, or most of the children in China, whatever, which are bottle fed because mother goes to work, grandma is there, and the bottle. You see, the structure is not normal. And when you see the children who are breastfed and brought up in breast milk or normal environment are totally different. And is it because of the not love of the mother, children become so pumped up, as we call it, or it's the lack of emotion, the touch, the love? Can we carry the emotion? This is part of what we taught today. Can we carry the emotion of the mother within the structure that a child receives the love and the care? Can we create the emotion of love in that incubator? We are not growing calf and cows and sheep in the chickens in the laboratories. It's a human. This emotion will come later on. And these are the things I've spoken in depth with the scientists, and what we will do. We create emotion feeding. But at the moment, no. Maybe in the next 12 months, 2 years, we'll introduce these kind of incubators or test. If the child doesn't feel hungry and it's in the environment which is nothing attached to it, but it's available for it to take, and it creates a healthy child, doesn't matter if the child is 24 months old, 2 weeks old, or 2 years old. It's the way we will create the future, but we start with actually the first trials we start with the animals.
So again, I don't think any of us have imagined that you can, yes, we've imagined incubators, but certainly not incubators in a way that can transfer over as what we saw with the Keeping the Keshe Foundation free video, where they can melt kidney stones from thousands of kilometers of the way away. They can also touch and feed a child's soul and the physicality. Again, beyond the imagination of the man without putting them in an incubator at all. Yes? Did somebody want to say something? Okay. Thought I heard a maybe not. Milan, was that you? I see your mic is open. Anything you wanted to add? If not, let's continue with the blood. Again, this is part of this dynamic system. We saw the brain at the beginning of the video. Maybe I should actually, well, no, we're here now. Let's just see where we are at 131:48. Okay, so we can come back to that. But if we saw the intro video, which of course Rick always picks up this right video in a way, as Mr. Keshe said, according appropriate to the teaching, without even knowing what the teaching is going to be. This is the idea of traveling the universe again in this sort of half-sphere spaceship reactor, where the brain is again, it's a static, but it's actually a dynamic. We're using all of it all the time and using all of it all the time. And then, of course, you have the central energy in the center. And then he talked about this blood, which is in a way, we saw that with the cage and the bird. And so this is the bird, and the physicality is the cage for that bird. And the blood carries, in a way, a strength that keeps the bird within the cage. But there's a bit of teaching about the blood. So let's just go back there. Gosh, I didn't even remember where we were. Was it 138? 21, sorry. Let's just see. And we'll go back. So there's a lot to the blood and what we take within ourselves, and this creates different emotions. And I know he's always used the one in the New Tomorrow video where India and Pakistan were the same until one took a different energy than the other. And that, I guess, the Indians stayed more on the lighter salt content, or the plant and vegetable, which is more peaceful, where the others took a different energy and decided, or a higher energy, and that was the meat and sort of protein-based diet, which made them a bit more aggressive, and this changed their structure. So by taking different energies, the structure of these people who were the same became, in a way, a bit different, even though we're all made in the image of the Creator. Let's see if we got back to the right spot here.
That word, if it's sincere, it's a synchronizer between the blood.
No, that's not it. Let me bring up the transcript and see where we sort of left off here. Okay, yeah, just before 132. Thank you for the creators of this transcript. It always comes in as a lifesaver, in a way. And of course, all of these teachings will be embedded in the One Nation network, that the soul will have quite an access to these, again, through memory or through the cosmic rays. But he said these teachings through this One Nation network and the gameplay will be embedded in the soul of the man.
What about the idea of creating blood with sort of artificial blood with the GANS product?
And of course, as Mr. Keshe said, the FDA tested this universal blood. I haven't made any. I've seen a sort of a simple process of how it's done, but I'm sure it's more detailed than that. And of course, as he said, this universal blood can create many, many benefits and many conditions for a lot of people. Apparently, it was stopped on the other end, not on the Keshe Foundation's end, but this is another item that is on the shelf in the Keshe Foundation and probably needs further development as well. But apparently what they've achieved has been confirmed by FDA officials.
Or some other plasmatic.
This is already in line for production, but in a specific way.
Could it be the way that creates a man that has no aggression? In other words, peaceful blood, and maybe we could have transfusions for those that need that peacefulness.
The blood we produced was tested by FDA. It's not something random. Was tested by FDA officers. And the way we produce it, that people always show that they think they can do it. But the way we produce it has been tested by FDA, and they tell us the way we produce the blood matches to every blood and can help a lot of conditions, including the emotion and energy. This test was stopped for other reasons. Nothing.
So you see, again, we have to mine the gold from the earth. We have to take the blood from other animals. I know a lot of other animals are used as well, but humans contribute. This is a huge multi-billion-dollar business, I'm sure, worldwide. And the Keshe Foundation within its structure, and apparently it's been tested. I don't know a lot of the details, but it can help so many conditions. Of course, that's not great for business if you're in the healthcare field. And maybe that's why it was sort of tabled or stopped on the other end. I don't know the details of that, though.
To do with our test, other aspects of the interaction. But we know, and actually this was on the table with our team past couple of days, and that part of our production in the factory is production of what we call universal blood. But do we need to give the blood, or can we transfer the energy of the blood across? And we have some tests which are getting done now, hundreds of liters of it, for some experiments.
So again, do we need the physicality, or can we transfer through, probably on the cosmic ray energy, what's needed? And this is, it seems to be every way Mr. Keshe is going, using what we know in the matter state to be sort of transferred in the cosmic ray ability to do that. And of course, as he said, they've studied the transmission from 3i. They've been doing some transmission sessions in the workshop. So there's something, I believe, embedded in there. And then, of course, we'll just go back to the store for a moment here, and just to show you that there's actually transmission sessions within the Keshe Foundation that people can participate in, or you can buy a gift for someone else to participate in these sessions and keep the Keshe Foundation free, developing the transmission understanding, or the transmission of emotions, and probably many more things. And that's part of the what they're calling the transmission sessions right here. And there is a February one coming up in about 5 days, but it's still open for your, you have the ability to still join. And then there'll be another one, I believe, in March, or he said it may be, based on certain developments, pushed back into April or May. So I'm not sure. But this is a way for you to help keep the Keshe Foundation free, and perhaps develop something, or a deeper understanding of your own structure, or something touching you. But it's more really for keeping the Keshe Foundation free and developing this for the bigger structure. So sometimes we think of going in and getting something for ourselves, but it's more about developing and allowing the team in the background and the systems to be tested and put through their paces. You become like a paid guinea pig in this process. And it's really a gift to humanity if you look at it that way. And that's what some people have been doing. Okay, we're going to create the Dome of Peace again. This is another process that's been sort of instigated by the Keshe Foundation. The first part is something for the physicality to do, where we release the GANS waters, and easy to make a GANS, very simple. And of course, the Brazilians have made this, and you can join the Brazilians in many of these meetings. And this is just the background showing that you can release GANS waters, and they're also part of the coin and the network and the plasma items. The GANS water is part of this process as well. It's all connected. We haven't seen the full understanding of it, how all these little individual sort of parts are connected to one another, but they all are. So on Sunday, we release GANS waters, and this is at 12 or 6 p.m. Again, you can do it at any time you want. Carry some with you. I put it in the windshield washer of the car and other places, in the dishes for stray animals or cats that live around here. So, and they can help spread it as well, and they become part of the whole structure because it's passed through their universe in a way. So yes, take it upon yourself. Nobody's keeping tabs. Nobody's keeping track of whether you do it or not. And so it's something for the physicality to do. As I said, the game, the enlightenment game, you're playing the game, something for your physicality to do. So let's hear the first step of creating the Dome of Peace. And of course, the Chinese have been doing this for more than a decade. And let's hear the first step of the Dome of Peace. It's for you to pick it up and to employ it. But it's a two-step process. Again, one for the physicality and one for the energy dimension.
I don't know if anyone wants to read this Dome of Peace. Anyone want to offer?
I
With
will
a nice
read it
voice.
for you.
Okay.
This is what came in and what is now become a pattern. This is from a guy, I don't know him, but he says, please remember this Sunday and every Sunday from now on, till we raise the soul of this planet to a peaceful planet. Keshe Foundation knowledge seekers worldwide will spread the GANS waters around the world at 12 p.m. Central European Time and or 18 p.m. Central European Time every Sunday at the same time as they choose which time to suit them. Thank you for participating in this greatest movement by the soul of the man to bring about the peace on this planet as the permanent feature of the life of this planet.
So again, very simple, but as you can see, this is not a short term. This is more of a long haul driver in a way, that you're going to try something or play with this in a way, and you're going to look for the change. You could, but again, this is not something that's a snap of the finger, but a longer term process. And I believe as these energies start to travel through this grid network, that it will even energize the material or the GANS waters that you've left or that you've sort of put into the environment to bring balance and peace. So that's the first step. Again, something for the physicality to do. Think of the gameplay as something for the physicality to do. Now we go to the second step, which is creating through our central energies this elevation of the soul of leaders or the soul of anything. Again, as Mr. Keshe said, they're not throwing the soup out, they're sort of adjusting it. Thank you, Stefania, and thank you, Shweta.
Anybody wants to read the Dome of Peace? I mean, Beautiful Souls. Here? Okay. I'll read this beautiful presentation of Dome of Peace. And the Dome of Peace is already here. All the knowledge seekers, truth seekers, lovers of humanity has built it in a way, spreading the GANS, loving each other as shareholders. So I will read this as please remember, every Sunday from now on until we raise the soul of this planet to a peaceful planet, Keshe Foundation knowledge seekers worldwide will spread the GANS waters around the world at 12 p.m. CET and or at 18 p.m. CET every Sunday at the same time as they choose which time to suit them. Thank you for the participation in this greatest movement by the soul of man to bring about the peace on this planet as a permanent feature of the life of this planet. Mr. Keshe suggests we add the next step to create the dome of peace with power of the souls, as we have already going through this with the 2 eyes. And we ask you to spread the guns, waters each Sunday. Now we give you a new path. Now try to unite each other's souls. Try to elevate the soul of humanity through your own soul to a level that no one can touch, the embodiment of the human race. So beautiful. Choose a time where all of you come together on the soul level in a state of inner calmness. At that time, don't spread the water of guns, but spread your soul. Unite, and in time, we will make a new race out of the soul of man. And then, instead of doing it once a week, do it all the time. M.T. Keshe.
Okay, thank you again, Shweta. And just to let everyone know, you can join the Brazilian team every day, 7 days a week. Wednesday is at 6 p.m. Central European time in an actual meeting on the Telegram or on the Zoom. And these are called daily intentions. On Wednesday, they meet at 6 p.m. CET. But the other days they meet for a daily intention at 1 a.m. Central European time. So you'd have to calculate your time, but it's an actual meeting that lasts maybe 30 or 40 minutes, depending on the interaction. So this is another way of joining with the others. And as Mr. Keshe said, when we combined our sort of emotions and our fields together, we make a beautiful bouquet, as we did with the Cup of Life 1, where you made 4 or 5 or 6 different cups and combine them. You make a bouquet of fields, and we're making a bouquet of energies when we do this process. So let's just demonstrate it if we can. Again, we're just going to take 1 minute of our time, but every day at 9 p.m., either Central European Summertime or Central European Time, you can join other souls. This is not a formal meeting on a Zoom or a Telegram or a YouTube channel, but this is just the work of the souls in the energy dimension, as we heard from Shweta, gathering and elevating the souls that are in need, and specifically the souls of the world spokespeople who are operating really for those behind the curtain, but we can touch them both. As he keeps reminding us, we have that main line of connection, which is the soul of the Creator. So fear not, and don't worry if you don't see the change tomorrow. As he said, this is not a day job. This is something a longer term, but it also gives you a bit of an understanding, or adds to your understanding, of working in this energy dimension, which I always thought was really for children or people who didn't want to roll up their sleeves and get something done in the physicality. Now we know the energy needs to be created first before we see a real physical dimension sort of manifest, especially what we're doing. So this gives us a very easy way to work. Doesn't take a lot of work. You can spend 1 nanosecond per day on this process, a half a nanosecond, a minute, or extend it as much or as often as you like. But this will become ingrained within you, because this is the dimension you'll operate when you go into that universal condition, if we can explain it that way. So you're all welcome anytime to participate, but collectively 9 p.m. So just ask your central energy to remind you about that time. It doesn't always work. I've done that. I don't set an alarm or anything, but many times all of a sudden I'll look at the clock and it's 3 minutes before 3 or 3 minutes after 3. And I said, oh, I could join with the others just for a brief period. Again, you decide how it befits you to play with this. But as Mr. Keshe said, we're opening up this mystery of the matter state of the entity to its energy dimension or energy side. But it's for you to, in a way, investigate and open it up for yourself, not so much for the others. So you're all welcome. And again, the beauty of this is nobody fails this test. So let's just take 1 minute of our time and collectively unite in inner peace and calmness and give to the soul of the world leaders, not the world leaders, to the energies within them that they could decide, or the soul, that central energy, could decide to pick up some of those fields or one of those fields and change a dimension within the dimension of physicality of these world spokespeople. And we can see that they are certainly, many of them are souls in need, as we are as well. But we've learned to give from our souls to elevate the others. So let's just take 1 minute of our time and start this process. And thank you all. Congratulations on your success in this process. Again, it happens every day. It gives you an opportunity to, as we said, be proud of the work you do, be proud of the person you are, and be proud of the difference you're making. If we try to approach this using the physicality, the game is rigged. We'll never, it'll take a lot of work, a lot of money, a lot of energy. But working in this energy dimension doesn't take a lot of work and doesn't take a lot of energy. So thank you again, and we thank you in advance for continuing to do this. It's not like you put a cake in the oven and a few hours later it's all done. It seems to be a more gradual, slow process that the system or these souls can adjust in a way. We'll have to see how all this turns out, but apparently it's worked in other places in the universe, and it will work here. Once we wake up the collective awareness of humanity, that just by giving through their central energies collectively can bring about a change. And of course, we'll continue to apply this until we see a permanent, peaceful planet existing. Thank you all again. Alex, I think you're more than welcome to come in. And if you're ready to begin, thank you for being here. Thank you for continuing to share the universal knowledge. And there is so much to share. As I said, these teachings will be opened up for decades and centuries, as Mr. Keshe indicated, into the future.
Thank you very much, Mark. Thanks for bringing the team here. We appreciate all of your presence here because it's a very important meeting. It's beyond the Keshe American Knowledge Team meeting of 2026. It's all of us. So the whole world is watching. Let's get some business done right off the bat, please, and please stand by. Thank you so much.
Disclaimer: the information and education material contained herein is meant to promote the general understanding and dialogue of GAN's processing. For professional medical, therapeutic, or healthcare advice or counseling. For medical issues or concerns, including decisions about medications and other treatments, readers, viewers, listeners should always consult their physician or, in serious cases, seek immediate assistance from emergency personnel. Prescription information, procedures, and use of medical devices information should be undertaken only by properly trained and certified medical personnel. We specifically disclaim any warranties, express or implied, including implied warranties of merchantability or fitness for a particular purpose. Such information is provided, as is, and is believed to be accurate at the time of its publishing, but it is the viewer's job to evaluate the accuracy of any information found in this presentation. Every case presented is of their own experience, applied by themselves for themselves, and it applies to their case only. Every person experiencing health problems should seek professional medical advice and consult their course of treatment with a doctor. The processes of plasma balancing described herein are a natural process which supports the body but does not replace medical advice or therapies one is already subject to.
Thank you, everyone. Welcome to the Keshe Foundation Spaceship Institute. And as I said, we are all part of the North American team, but we're represented by many people from around the world. And we are grateful that you're here because this is a worldwide project. And so we are continuing into 2026 at a time that we will look back on history at pivotal moments in our recent past, and we'll reflect on it, and we'll have lots of commentary. But the most important thing that we have to understand is that we are at that pivotal moment where we can finally bring peace and prosperity to this planet. This is the Keshe Foundation Spaceship Institute Teachings on Plasma Science. We're discussing the intermediate Picotech series. Our first topic is ribbons. My name is Alexander. I am from Canada. It is February the 22nd of 2026. Lots of twos in this number. This is part of the Keshe Foundation North America Plasma Education Series. So I hope you enjoy this new journey. We have had many journeys, and so when we review where we've come from, we try to condense it into many bite-sized pieces, as I say. And after the Picotech series and in the basics, we discussed the Pico core, the construction, deconstruction, reconstruction of the Pico stars, and of course, that non-existent biggity bangity. And we're moving on into the intermediate Picotech series, and we're going to discuss a different line of thinking because we have to incorporate not only what we're doing today, because the technology is now within our hands, but how we've gotten here with respect to the past and how we can navigate this new path. And so, as we've always said, it has to do with plasma. But our focus has been on the matter plasma. And the matter plasma is basically our gravitational feelings of the physicality, where we can touch it and see it. But our plasmatic aspect of it is magnetical, where we can't touch it or can't see it. But it's a supporting structure. And so man is always feedback dominant, because whether it's a magnetical plasma or a gravitational plasma, it is still very much part of the matter plasma dimension. But we're trying to transcend that, and what's difficult is we have to think outside of the box. And so that has taken us into an understanding that we're not just doubling up, but we're also increasing by levels of magnitude. That is 10 times 10 times each level. And so we have delved into the picostate, matter state, and we're trying to go beyond that as well. But before we can, we have to understand where we are. It's many times been said, well, we're so above, so below. And it's interesting to hear that. What does it mean exactly? So historically, many of the traditions and discussions have been veiled in different languages. Latin was one of them, like Corpus Robur. And this is really the oak tree. And it's associated with longevity. And it can take up to 100 years to fully develop and can live for hundreds of years. even nearly 1,000 years. Wow. It's very impressive. And as far as ecology is concerned, the oak trees support high levels of biodiversity, providing habitat and food for numerous insects, mammals, and birds. But it also carries a symbolism. These trees are deeply integrated into folklore and are historically regarded as symbols of wisdom and strength. Well, yes, it is. Oak is a hardwood. But we like to tie a yellow ribbon around the old oak tree. And a long time ago, there was a famous song as a prisoner was being released to understand if his coming home was welcome. And the signal would be a yellow ribbon tied around the old oak tree. But there have been many meanings for these yellow ribbons. And I had to be careful in this discussion because coming from Canada, the yellow ribbon means fighting cancer. But it also has a reference to hostages and lost relatives, and in the military as well, lost lives. And so the yellow ribbons have many meanings. And it's understandable that it's confusing. But the thing about it is that it represents an emotion. And that is the new course that we're embarking on, this emotional path. And how does it affect our understanding of the principal matter? So if we look at the PM ticks, which are the principal matter, and they are magnetical and they come as an energy pack and they converge into antimatter, dark matter, and matter gen. And this becomes a plasmagen conversion. It is not in the physicality at this point in time. But there's a field interaction with another physicality, and that is the mag-rav condition of the Earth space. And so when the physicality of our space interacts with the Earth space, then that becomes our physicality. And so there's that interaction, which we call inertia. And how do we derive a practical purpose and explanation and usage of this type of knowledge? Well, we are in the beyond Beijing era. There have been many eras over a period of time, but this era is post May the 10th of 2025, when the gold rush began of 2025, but now there's a silver rush in 2026, and the rush continues. And so it's come down to the point, it's not just a matter of understanding, but it's a matter of adoption. Can we adopt this practical approach to fulfilling our presence here? Because we have depended on the atomic structure, but we got into the monatomic structure of the nano, and now we're into the picoatomic structure, which is even smaller. And we're going beyond that. We're getting very close to that reality of our existence. Our existence is part of the transmutation highway. Well, we're on the transmission highway, which is the lowest energy field. And then there's that transition highway in between. And how do we decide? Are we going up to the transmutation or down to the transmission? But is the transmission into physicality the only transmission that we understand? And so we've opened up a new can of worms, if you will, as we're discussing these waveforms. We all understand frequency because sometimes we have to go a crooked mile just to drive a straight line, part of our transmission. And we see that on the Karakoram Highway and how it zigzags back and forth. So maybe the zig is magnetical and the zag is gravitational. Well, one depends on the other, doesn't it? Because if you don't interact with the other, then you can't zigzag and then you can't repeat. So one is dependent on the other. And so we were lodged into a dilemma here where we're understanding frequencies as a sine wave, but that's in singularity. But you take a sine wave in duality and the picture greatly changes. You still have the zigzag, but do you only have the one zigzag, or do you have two zigzags? Or what happens if you modulate them? Or what happens if you distort them? And these are just simple ways to address things. So now we're trying to understand the plasma science in a slightly different way. As originally presented by Marian Tavakoli Keshe in book number 1, The Universal Order of Creation of Matter. Well, that's what we're familiar with, that matter is created. But what we see is the physical product of that creation. What we ignore is how this matter state came together with 3 different energy densities of antimatter, dark matter, and matter state. And then where did that come from? And where is it going? And in book number 2, The Structure of the Light, we see the source and we see the destination. This is the new travel method that we have to understand. And then, of course, how do you start with the 1 and end up with the 2? So the origin of the universe, as described in book number 3, describes how that happens. And then we see that, wait a second, one of them is our universe. We call it man's universe. It's our universe. Are we the dominant one? Or are we residents in man's universe? So for reference, yes, that's man's universe. But there's another universe out there, a sister universe, complementary, counterweight, balancing off everything, allowing us to exchange. So when we go to book number 2, then we see that there is a source, and that from our point of view, we were the destination. So we have to go outside of the box of understanding. And that is what we've been doing for 418 weeks in a row with Rick Crammond and the Universal Council, bringing together the understanding of what it takes to bring one planet, one nation, one race for justice and world peace together. And why is this being done now? Why wasn't it done in the first place? It seems to be very fundamental. It seems to be foundational. Why are we discussing this after thousands and thousands of years in our history where it seems that we've failed to discuss this? And a lot seems to have to do with this angular density, where we are falling through weakness. And so we get labeled as fallen angels because it increases our density as we come to the ground. It increases our pressure, which therefore means that we're increasing our gravity. The real thing is that it's increasing our dependence on Earth space feeding. And so we become accustomed to that. But there is an internal pressure that is counterbalancing that of the Gans fields. And this is what allows that angular momentum to be conserved. So this balancing comes in many ways, and we've been grown accustomed to confrontation. We see the duality as duals. And energy manifests as friction. And if we bring our hands together and clench them as fists, well, that manifests into fighting. So here we are. We're always creating a density manifestation. And this is what we call inertia. And so it's fun to say, gentlemen, shake hands and come out fighting. But it's not fun. It's not fun when people are dying or when people are suffering. And it seems to be that, well, that's just the way it is. It's like being old and decrepit. Well, you're getting old, okay, so you have aches and pains. Well, what don't you understand about that? It's perfectly normal. Well, is it normal, or have we acquired that as an attribute of normalcy? So we've been given 10 commandments to, help us understand that. And so these are 10 commandments for humanity. And, it's not 10 commandments for our pets or the plants or the rivers or anything else. And then there are other commandments which complete the whole picture in 24 commandments. But here we have one, that thou shalt not lie. Well, if thou shalt not lie, why do we have to have that as a commandment? Are we afraid that these commandments are not telling the truth? Well, we need to bind our energy. We need to fulfill our self-serving needs. That's the dimension point of me, myself, and I. We need to do that. Well, we've already acquired that. We've already arrived. But do we need to continue to do that and then do it at the expense of others by way of lying, cheating, stealing, and in fact killing? And then we look at the kind of emotion that we have. Do we have the love of humanity? Do we have the love of money? Maybe we have the love of gold, or maybe we have a heart of stone, or maybe we like to be abused. And so we lose our vitality in all of these processes because we are louche leakers, our vitality. And we lose it physically because we lose it emotionally. So we need a boost. And the regular boost that we have here is by acquiring it, either through food or through business or through war, always some kind of confrontation. But what about our emotion? How does that get stabilized? Who does that stabilizing? Is it you, or is it an external force? And if you can't do it, well, just sign this paper and we'll take care of all your ailments. So that becomes a transaction zone. But the fact of the matter is, when you're dealing with singularity, that requires a solo effort. That's what we're going to talk about today. Because duality requires partnership. But what happens when you are partnered with yourself? In other words, me and myself. Well, the partnership requires reciprocity, a balance of incentives. Okay, so it's between me and myself and I. And that's how we develop that I and that ego, because we don't understand the plasma rule, where the higher strength feeds the weaker strength. We are focused on the higher strength beating the weaker strength or eating the weaker strength. It's all a transaction zone. And the question of whether it's a point of conflict or a binding zone all depends on your point of view, I guess. But that zone is a density manifestation. That's what the inertia is. So from that, as we bring these two fields together, we create something. So when we have this field, we create these nanocharges, which allow us to charge and discharge that system of convergence where everything comes together. And then when we extend that with a nano alignment, where we have this monatomic alignment and we have a direction of flow, and we achieve that by taking a nano coating of a copper wire, and we created a nanocoating of a carbon crystal. Well, isn't that interesting? And when you nest all these crystals together, we create a variety of nanomonatomic layers. And in between these layers, we have these nanogaps. And so they create this star formation. And so to help you understand, just take your two index fingers from your both hands and bring them together. Don't come out fighting, just rotate one 90 degrees and create this tetrahedron, a star formation. And then as we bring these layers together, we can create nanostars. They are multiple monatomic energy flow systems, and they're all operating as a superconductor at room temperature. And so there has to be a compatibility, an inversion, a sine wave, an up and a down. And the next up is dependent on the down. So we go from up to down to up and up to down. And if we have more than three in a chain, well, that's a polymer, that's a synthetic. So the basic star formation has an orientation where the pole is magnetic and the gravitational base is the foundation. And that gravitational foundation is bringing together the energy fields of the matter state, the dark matter, and the antimatter. And then when we take these individual rotating balls and put them in a star formation, as each ball filled with GANs physically, physical balls rotating with a physical GANs, they do create a plasma field. And all of these come together in a star formation. And if we double up and we create these rotating ball pairs, and we create a star formation that way, this is what we did in Beijing publicly. It was publicly shown. So why is it so quiet? This is a very pivotal event, very historic event, the public demonstration of producing gold out of thin air and hoping that it would land in those silver spoons. So we see these dynamic reactors, how they come together and they create that plasma field. And that plasma field is positive. That's the point. That's where you start your dimension building. And what point is that? Is that just an arbitrary point, or is that an atomic point, or a nano point, or a pico point? And since we're discussing the pico point, they follow the same rules. You add another point and you connect one. And from there, you build up. But we're talking about charge. And so the endpoints are negative and the connection is positive. That's what you create. But if you bend that, well, now you introduce another negative point. And so that point becomes the inflection point. And now you're introducing the manifestation of hydrogen and oxygen. And so we have this energy parceling unit, which is called water. And water itself is a round combination of two hydrogens and one oxygen. And it forms a magrav. That means it's balanced magnetically and gravitationally. How is it possible that two tiny hydrogens can counterbalance one big fat oxygen? And then when you shear off one of these hydrogens, and we know that that's positive, so now you've given that, well, now you left behind with a negative charge because that water molecule, which is now hydroxyl, is looking for a place to go. And that is negatively charged. So it is now giving of itself. And wherever it goes, it's looking for some kind of balance. So we discussed in the past these rainbow reflections. And we see that there's a curvature of one rainbow and there's a curvature of a second rainbow. But this kind of curvature is not normal. it does show where the blue color is on the inside of the curve and the red color is on the outside of the curve. But the reflection of the rainbow, although the color sequence is correct, the curvature is not. And when we look at the natural curvature of two rainbows coming together, then we do get the color sequence where the first rainbow on the inside is blue on the inside and red on the outside, and the reflection is red on the inside and blue on the outside, but the curvature is exactly the same. And so there's this gap in the middle. And we say, well, we're kind of crossing the Bordeaux, and what does that mean? Well, it's this gap that has one rainbow and it has a reflection of a second rainbow. And it's not symmetric, it's a reflection. And in between is that gap that creates this peace dome that allows you to go from one side to the other. Well, the one side is the image of the other side. And this is what we've heard so many times. I made man in the image of myself. So there's one image, there's another image, and then there's the I in the middle. And so this, as it relates to the polyatomic solid GANS inertias, we see that these covalent bonds, when they come together, they're not physical. There's a gap in between. That gap is magnetical. And that is the giver. These are covalent bonds. And so when we look at the dynamic plasma construction, we have two reactors at each point of the plasma stars, and they become a dynamic plasma construction. And so what happens at the core, you create a nucleus, and it's from that nucleus that you get this inertial manifestation. But that's in one direction. Even in singularity, it has to go in two directions. There has to be a counterbalance. And so we look at the conventional counterweight measures. The gravitational ones that we're familiar with are weight and mass, the weight being physical and the mass being atomic. But in the magnetical, we're now introducing a Tesla, which is the nuclear state, and the time, which is the plasma state. The key point is that they are balanced. One moment, please. So now that we've laid that groundwork, now we have to figure out how do we convey this nuclear feeding inertia where we have this gravitational stability, but it all gets broken up into different fragments. And then we find that the energy can transcend the various fragments and the various energy states. So now we have dimensional portability as well. So how do we rationalize all these dimension points? And we're still coping with our singularity. And then when we look at the plasma matter dilemma, what we understand the four basic states, the atomic state, nanostate, and the GANS state, which represent our physical understanding, and the substructure of the plasma state, all of them function off with an equation where we balance the magnetical gravitational fields on one side with the gravitational and magnetical fields on the other side. And we also balance across the various states. We're able to transcend all the full range from the atomic state to the plasma state and all states in between. And this is all made from the various fragments. So these fragments become clues where either the energy is converging or it's diverging. And that's what creates your wave. And so this interaction creates this gravitational convergence, but it also creates a magnetical divergence. And so these things come together and create this pathway. So when we look at the cosmic rays, each of these rays is coming in the singularity. Each of these rays are magnetical. Each of these rays are squeezed into their position. And that position is gravitational. But there are rays of every color, every flavor, and they get sorted out into inertia fields. So which color is it? Well, in the Earth space, it's not just one color, where you have these individual inertia ribbons, where the one color comes in and then is a reflection of itself, and it crosses over as a ribbon. And as we find, these ribbons have meanings, and these meanings have an emotional attachment. And so it's not just that one color, but there's a common denominator that gives you a clue on how these things come together. And so let's say, for instance, on the one hand, where the magnetical comes in, let's say, as a green ribbon, but what goes up must come down. And so we introduce an orange ribbon, and it's in the opposite direction. And it's in the image of itself, isn't it? And you have to have the one with the other before you can repeat that. And as we do, it becomes an embedded transmission and carries forward. What affects this path link and susceptibility? It's the strength. And from that strength becomes a conversion that brings together the magnetic and the gravitational aspect. And it's not just a simple left to right, but it transcends all the ranges. And everywhere where it comes together is a gravitational point. So you don't just go from one blue ribbon to another blue ribbon, but you can go from a purple ribbon to an orange ribbon and still maintain that equilibrium. And so we find that ours is a picoplanet with many, many flavors. And we have basically 7 civilizations that come together, and they all come together with the same story. And that story is the one story that keeps coming back. The same story, the Great Flood. And we are not very knowledgeable of what happened before that, although there are form artifacts that tell us. And we, frankly, are not very knowledgeable of what came after that, although there are many form artifacts. So we now have a different focus on this plasma matter dilemma. It isn't just the equality, it's the equilibrium. It isn't just the equal sign, but it's the gravitational field strength, the positivity, and the contribution to that is the negative charge. But there is a covalent bond between the plasma state, and it's balanced off by the transmission state in between, which is your MAGRAV energy transfer state. And each level has that. So here we go. Now we can transcend the various levels, and we can bring that energy, which is an emission of intention. This is the energy that is beyond our aura, very dynamic, and involves a plasma interaction where we are launching from one point to a target point. And then from that target point, we launch back to the original target point, right? So there's an upness, there's a downness, there's a yin, there's a yang, there's a balance. And so we see how our cellular nuclear PM ticks are highly gravitational. Each and every cell in our body has that gravitational component. And everything that is outside of it is part of the emission, the magnetical emission. But is it in singularity? Can we say that the kidney and the heart are the same thing? Can we say that the left arm and the right leg are the same thing? Well, it's part of our physicality. So there has to be that emission of intention that is like that ribbon where it comes back to us. So in other words, the GANs of the soul as represented in the cups of life. The cups of life themselves can produce a product. Or you take a cup of emotion and another cup of emotion, and you have a new transaction zone. And you take a cup of physicality and another cup of physicality, and you have a new transaction zone. And then you bring the product of the inertia of the cup of emotions, the cups of emotion and the cups of physicality, and you have another transaction zone. And that becomes your pico core. And from there, you now have your gravitational confirmation, your gravitational stability, and you are the gravitational entity traveling in a magnetical field. That is the transmission. So when we look at the cup of the universe and we say, well, wait a minute, we have our physicality, but we're connected to the rest of the universe. And so it isn't just the copper GANs, which is physical, and the zinc GANs, which is emotional, or just the carbogen, which is now connected to the universe, or the pituitary, which is our manifestation of our physical connection. These are all the communications of love. Love is an emotion. Which love are we talking about? Which love is that is so strong that is gravitational? Tie a yellow ribbon around the old oak tree and see if my love continues. Sure. And what are we talking about? Well, historically, Aphrodite was the symbol, this ancient Greek goddess of love, beauty, passion, and procreation, known for her central role in myths, like the Trojan War and her birth from seed foam. A member of the 12 Olympians, she was often associated with Venus in Roman mythology. She was considered a powerful, sometimes capricious force, often accompanied by her son, Eros. Is it symmetric? Or is it a reflection? Nothing to discuss there. It's just a myth, isn't it? It's a myth of our existence. Well, we can't refute the scientific evidence. We have the transmission carbon highway, the transition carbon highway, and the transmutation carbon highway. And these are all the carbon inertia highways as they come together the way we did in Beijing on May the 10th. And so they're all supported by an equilibrium. And so the cosmic rays themselves are representative of that, because they are not just simple and unstable, because they're very, very stable as they come from all sorts of sources and interact. But we're very selective on this planet. We have created a free plasma where we have our carbon, oxygen, hydrogen, and nitrogen as part of the creation of life. And so all of the organs, whether they be kidneys or legs, they're all a structure within a structure, and they're all a reflection of our own existence, our own energy, our soul action. And so we have this transaction zone of this solo interaction working with another transaction zone of our solo interaction. And that becomes the gravitational picocore of me, myself, and I. And we can transcend all of these emotions, can't we? We can go from happiness to bliss to violence and war. What causes those changes? So we are very susceptible in our singularity, as we've seen in Beijing. The gravitational completion comes through an external input of a Gans field of humanity, where the gold finger touches the Gans, and that susceptibility ends up being in duality. But we're not talking about that today. What we're talking about, the gravitational completion in singularity, because that is a manifestation, an inertia density manifestation of the plasma field, where me and myself come together and create the I in the transaction zone, that dimensional point coming together, the magnetical and gravitational convergence. And we have this gravitational confirmation already on this planet, because the oxygen is that non-visible gas that identifies our existence on this planet. And so there's a full gamut going from the plasmatic decay to the Gans. But there's also a Gans decay that goes from gas to liquid to solid. And it's always a gravitational tracking system, gives our gravitational confirmation. And so we become overly dependent on that. And so we need supplementation, because we are consumers. And so we not only consume energy and waste our loosh, but we also acquire knowledge. That helps us. But it's a conditional teaching by ancient teachers. There is an unconditional teaching by which fulfills the needs for this supplementation. There's a new awareness, a historical threshold between the cosmic feeding and the loosh harvesting. And so this is all part of the new uncharted territory that we're embarking on. So we see that there are many stars beyond the nanoatomic state covering that full range from decay to radiation, as we describe it. And that artificial intelligence is our ancestral intelligence, because we are the technology and we are the inertia product, and we are the image of our dimensional convergence point. So that energy that we're talking about is portable. Each portability takes us through different energy states. Elevation takes us from the physical matter state to the energy state, whereas the inertia takes us from the energy state down to the physical matter state. So what we're talking about is elevation. This involves expansion. Expansion just in general terms. And as we see the impact of our third eye, there's gold in them there hills. And this is the greater oneness that we've been trying to teach for 630 knowledge seekers workshops in a row, suddenly transcending the limitations of nuclear science so that we understand the cosmic ray transmission. And as we continue in this training, you can join us in February and March with these classes that help you understand me, myself, and I, and how our research teams are turning diamonds to gold or silver. This is the Pico core of truth. And as we've seen in the 630th Knowledge Seekers Workshop, there are embedded frequencies. And we come to that point of understanding where we have a segregation on one side of me, myself, and I, and on the other side, the product of me, myself, and I, and the separation, the conditioning, so close, and yet so far. Our mission is to bring peace on earth and join humanity with the universal community. We want to bring man as equal to all the beings in the universe by teaching the plasma science and technology equally to everyone, that no one is left out and no one is abused due to lack of knowledge. Help us achieve our goal, not only through the World Peace Treaty, but as members of the Keshe Foundation's Spaceship Institute teachings on plasma science. And so we're welcoming all the beautiful plasma travelers of the carbon nations, learning about the new frequencies of the new organic plasma science. Use the World Peace Treaty, choose it, sign it unconditionally, mean it sincerely, because the point of the true Picotech is the polyatomic core manifestation. So the overlapping ribbons of the Earth space create that peace dome. All of us. It isn't just me, myself, and I, but it's times 8 billion on this planet. But we have to take into account the inertia of the present that is governed by the dimensions of history and how many lives have gone in the past. Tie a yellow ribbon to that. It is time to learn the history of self in a universal context. And the Pico state silently explodes as a peaceful superconductor. There's a lot of emotion attached. There's a lot of misunderstanding and a lot of misrepresentation. But the ribbons and the oak trees tell the scientific story, transcending the matter, plasma, and universal states. So please continue to deliver the plasma science and enhance our existence daily via the Peace Dome, using a practical exchange for peace on Earth. So welcome to the new golden outer space age. And I hope you're enjoying the direction this new project is taking. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, Alex, too, for sharing another aspect of this technology. As I said, we're just basically scratching the surface in our understanding. Mr. Keshe is probably going deeper, but thank you for sharing. This is what it's about. Would anyone like to ask a question or make a comment or direct us in a different way?
Well, I have a question. I don't know if I'm going to explain it very well.
Well, thank you, Gary.
Um,
I was just going to say maybe Alex stumped our panelist and he needs to go to a smaller spoon feeding. Thank you, Gail.
well, I'm glad to open the meeting up. Okay, I just when I look at some of the drawings, okay, I see something that looks like scalar energy. And then Mr. Kesh was talking about um, before things become like the gel of the creator, the energy, before they become particles and waves, um, the gel, as I understood it, is there some sort of vibration that's happening? Or have I got that wrong? And
Oh,
then
I
that,
would say you have that right.
okay, thanks. Um, can you just explain that a little bit for me?
Well, we seem to defer our responsibility to others, and that is really one of the harsh realities of knowledge. The knowledge actually exposes you to that responsibility. And I know in Canada, for instance, we have been conditioned to avoiding responsibility. Oh, it's not my job, or it's above my pay scale, or you know, it's I don't want to be involved. And that is, you can't be not involved. You can't be excommunicated from the plasma reality. No one has that authority. No one has that power to inflict that fear, and no one has that right to impose abuse. So how come they're so successful? And that is because we allow it to happen. We become victimized, and we're not victims. We are basically allowing that to happen because we're not taking that responsibility. So what do you expect when, if you don't look after, for instance, your health, and you say, well, I'm going to go to the hospital to look after my health. And then when you get there and you say, okay, well, the way you did it is not working, so now you're going to do it our way, and you're going to have to like it. Well, now you've exposed yourself to all sorts of, shall we say, alternative methods, when the primary method rests within us. So our thoughts matter, our soul matters, our soul of physicality matters. And so we need to take charge and understand that we are a reflection of ourselves. And that's why I always say, thou shalt not lie, because you can't lie to yourself. You are yourself. And if you're telling a lie and you're expecting someone to believe you, that's a deception. But when you expect yourself to believe your own lies, what is that? That is going to be the worst case scenario. Yeah, I'm happy in my misery. Good, good. Enjoy yourself. Knock yourself out. But you have to participate. You cannot be a non-participatory organism. You're part and parcel of the whole process. So what you emit comes back to you. And that's where the ribbon comes in, because you are that ribbon. And that ribbon is an emotional prompt which triggers your memory. So tie that yellow ribbon so that I know that you remember me. But, you have to be detached in that process so that you can remember yourself. Back to you, Gail.
But how does that, are you saying that in the beginning it's the creator and in a way he's the yellow ribbon as well and somehow everything starts almost like an emotion or well, if there was no reflection, there wouldn't be anything happening. There would be no feedback.
You're you asking the question or answering the question?
No, no. I'm trying to understand what you were getting at because it didn't sound like how the vibration starts. But if we're talking about reflections, then I guess, but that means that something had to happen before the particles and the waves, like magic, you see. Okay.
Well, if there is one creator, how do
Mm-hmm.
we
He has
create
to do it all by
how do we
himself.
create yeah, how do we create 8 billion individuals?
Start from scratch. Um, I mean, I mean, for me, when we started talking about the original fundamental ray, um, as it starts out, there's some sort of an environment, and as it goes through that environment, the front part starts to slow down, but there's still the original motion from the back. So it's like peeling back the the ray and from the front to the back, and so it becomes a circular motion, and then it starts to interact with itself, and then from there, I guess that's where I get stuck. But I think it's not just every. When we first started, we were told it's just one ray, and but the original part of the ray keeps going on. So there's going to be a lot of pieces that will interact with each other. Maybe that's what's in my mind.
Well, of
Okay.
course. And if you have one ray and one inertia ribbon, then the question becomes, is it the yin or is it the yang? Is it the magnetical or is it the gravitational?
Originally the magnetical,
Right.
but as it interacts, then there is a force put on and it can bend back some of it, not all of it. So then it would take on density and it's almost like it would pull itself together in a way, but still there would be other parts that are going on. So those would be able to interact. Well, I really don't know. I wasn't there at the beginning. I'm kind of like the end result, you know?
You were there at the beginning. That's embedded within you. That's the whole point.
Yeah, to me, everything is circular. Like, I even think that if we elevate, then we end up, we're still connected to the creator. So we actually elevate the creator just by elevating ourselves. So we would improve the whole mess that we have as we go along. Maybe. So to me, it seems circular in a way.
Mhm.
How about simultaneous instead of circular?
Well, when we bring all the people together under the peace dome, then that would be very simultaneously.
But but would we all be created at the very same time then? I mean, the potential is there.
I seen an experiment on YouTube, and it was talking about an experiment with mice going back to the 1970s, where they took four mice that were male and four mice that were female and put them together in a confined area and gave them everything that they needed. So, the basic necessities of life are air, water, food, and shelter, pretty much in that order. And as a result, they procreated. And there were thousands of mice. But the area would remain confined. And so because of that closeness, it created a stress. And so the male mice ended up isolating themselves from the females, and the female mice were repelling the males. And so there wasn't the interaction anymore of the basic procreation. And so that population actually extinguished itself through
Oh,
death, and it wasn't replaced through birth. And so the
th-
moral of the story really is that that is an artificial environment. But what we see is that the universe is growing. We see that from the solar system, we have the sun at the core, and we have all the planets. And yes, they're coming together. And on each rotation, they become more dense. But we are creating other things all the time because of the equilibrium. So it isn't just the demise of one, but it's the transference of energy. And so if we understand that concept, how do we play within that transference of energy? And since we're on this prison planet, we become confined to that area. And so we become hostile to ourselves, despite the fact that we have social networks that are enhancing that. And we become isolated within our own
mhm.
egos, me, myself, and I-ness. And we can't interact anymore with the other people because we have intermediaries like cell phones and tablets and computers.
Mhm.
But here we are using the computers to communicate and to exchange ideas and learn. So it's not just one way, there's another way. And that way means that we have to open up to those possibilities. And we get to choose what those possibilities are. And if we want to be miserable and, become addicted to our faults, failings, and weaknesses, then we can choose that because we are a reflection of ourselves. And so in that process, we become disjointed. And this is where we have that divergence. How do we bridge that? How do we cross that divide where we have the embedded frequencies on one side and we have the embedded frequencies on the other side? We just can't bring them together. So we have a yin without a yang, and we have a yang without a yin, and well, that's just ancient science. That's all mythology.
I I remember Mr. Keshe talking about two civilizations that have disappeared that were very advanced. 130,000 years ago, and I think he said 500,000 years ago, they ended up, and I guess, somehow annihilating themselves. So, in a way, I guess we should start traveling so we don't overload and squash everybody together, because that seems to be a problem.
Well, it is, and we become overly committed to our physicality. That's where the problem sits. We don't want to recognize the other side, which is supporting that physicality. So we have to understand that our physicality is a inertia product field, inertia density manifestation. From what? From the emotions. So we look at that ribbon on the oak tree to trigger that emotion that's saying, yeah, you love me, or yeah, we're looking for a way to deal with cancer, or yeah, we're looking for remembering our lost ones, our loved ones that we lost. So it conveys all these meanings. So that's within us. And we use that as a memory trigger. And because that's within us, and that's what we emit. But can we do something about that? And the way it's presented is like we can't. So we create this artificial divide. I mean, tell me if this doesn't look like the parting of the Red Sea.
Yeah, in a way. Well, I wasn't there again, but the idea, yes, in this picture here.
Well, I can't tell you either if it was true or not. But I know one thing for sure, chariots of fire did not have, rockets coming out of the horses. So, it's a figure of speech or metaphor.
Yes.
And there are many discussions in the past about these many metaphors. And so we see these ribbons, how they show a connection. And it's basically ourselves and how we feel about ourselves. And so that emotion is emitted at that crossover point being the inertia density manifestation point. And from there, you have your pico core. And from there, you have your Gans explosion, because that is what you emit, what you give your time and attention to. So everyone is doing that whether they want to or not. That is not a matter of choice, that's a matter of existence. Well, that's the reality.
Power of positive thinking, in a way.
Well, the power of positive thinking is one way to manipulate it. That requires an external influence. And so, do you have to have someone slap you on the side of your head? Gee, get up, you lazy. And then, or do you wake up in the morning and look in the mirror and say, boy, you really are, a failure. And so that becomes a positive feeling that is amplifying, or shall we say, entrenching that feeling. But if you look in the mirror and say, I'm a real amazing product. How can I maximize my benefit? How can I contribute better? Well, am I happy with the current situation? Well, when we look at the theory of relativity, it just boils down to this. How do you know when you're happy if you don't know what you're like when you're sad? How come, you were, very excited? How do you know that if you weren't depressed? But why do we need to be depressed? And why do we need to be excited? And why do we need to have these extremes? Well, in our physical state, it's a lot of fun, isn't it? You go to a movie and, you see a tearjerker and you start crying, or you listen to a song and, you get this emotional feeling, or, a couple will have this music coming in the background. Oh, do you remember that? That's when you and I met and, we had that first dance. So these are triggers for our emotion. And so that trigger comes from our own memory. So all of a sudden, wait a second, I'm feeling better because I am looking at myself from a different point of view. So if you were feeling depressed and then suddenly you had this memory of a time when you were extremely happy, wouldn't that make you happy today? Oh, I remember when I was, so happy. Yeah, doesn't that feel good? Shouldn't you strive for that? So that's where the carry forward is. And that's our, shall we say, our karmic relief, because that's what the karma is. It's a carry forward where we carry our baggage. We don't need the baggage. Why do we need to carry that baggage? Let's look at the future because the future is very bright. But not everybody thinks that way. And until we bring peace and prosperity to this planet, we're going to be stuck in that confined area. But let's remember something. This confined area is not as confined as they tell us. We are not overpopulated. We just don't have enough knowledgeable people to bring about that peace and prosperity the way it's supposed to be. Because there are still people who are engaging in conflict, in wars. And so, yes, as civilizations advance and they are fully embedded in their physicality, refusing to recognize the plasma reality, then that's the alternative. I'll be happy when you're dead. Wow, what a novel concept.
This is very well said, Alex.
Well,
I
what
think,
you said was also very well said. You need to listen to your answer because it's very concise. Mine is just a babbling brook. You were very concise.
well, we all like babbling brooks. Well, at least I do. Thank you very much.
All right, any others who'd like to join the conversation? Create some plasmas in a way through your interactions. You talk about these carbon highways, Alex, as in a way, is this a way out? But yet I haven't seen any carbon highways. Are they like the tar highways? I look up in the sky, I don't see any highways. I look on the ground, there's no carbon highways. What are these carbon highways that can help to, in a way, change our dimension?
Well, just a moment, Mark. The carbon-12 is an element that is a physical manifestation, but the carbon-14 is an isotope, and the carbon-16 is an isotope, and the isotopes are unstable. So they're transitory. They come at that point of interchange.
Are they physical highways?
No, sir. They're plasma highways.
So I can't see them, but perhaps I can feel them?
Well, play a song from when, you were young and, full of life. When you were happy. Play a song and you tell me how you feel.
Yeah, that's what he was saying. We can those memories can be brought up again. They're there. He used that example of NASA losing all the movies and the way they got to the moon and the rest of it. But he says we can tap into those memories of emotion from the past and sort of work with that in a way. We've never.
Well, if the current generation were to disappear, then the memories of that space flight would also disappear. But we do have a historical record. So it is going to be impossible to eliminate that. Many have tried, but we still have the story of Atlantis. We still have the story of the Great Flood. Many of this, basically, we talk about whitewashing things. Well, the Great Flood did a massive washing. It washed everything away, and yet here we are. So where did that come from? And you say, well, there was this creator, but, was it the creator or another creator? Because how can another creator create you if they themselves weren't creator? So there has to be a connection. That's the carbon-16, the cosmic rays. And as they come and interact and they reflect, bounce off, they get absorbed and get emitted. There's a constant motion. They have to cross over. And when they cross over, you have that increased density, that layering that Irmgard was talking about. And that's just me and myself overlapping with myself and I. So it's not me, it's not myself, but it's I. It's coming together of everything that you do and stand for. So in that process, you exist. And what do you do with that? You cannot do nothing. There is no such thing as nothing. Something is always something. But it could be this or it could be that. And that's based on its susceptibility. And are we so susceptible that we are fulfilling the prophecies of demise? Or are we fulfilling the prophecies of, I don't really see any prophecies of prosperity and peace and bountifulness. I just know that the universe is providing that unconditionally because the sun comes up and it gives unconditionally, not just to Earth, but to Mars and Pluto and everywhere else. So it's a catalytic converter.
And
So
Ed, do we
how
need
is it giving?
intermediaries to receive those fields from the sun, or do we need intermediaries to receive from the one who created that sun?
Well, you go out into the beach and you answer that question, you know,
Yeah,
or just open the sunlight and see what you get.
I think it's got a lot to do with acknowledging the creator in so many ways, as Ike brought up. I don't have that background where you acknowledge the soul by, I love you, my soul, I live you, my soul, and I love with you. And I adore you, and see what the soul will give back to you. I don't think I've done this enough in my life in a way to acknowledge that. And apparently, a different interaction happens when you acknowledge.
Isn't that the truth?
Firm. And Mr. Keshe says he does this so regularly with all of his partners. Again, could it be a plant in the house or a tree in the yard or something else? He seems to be doing this confirmation of love in a way, or acknowledgement. And this is what he's taught us the creator is hungry for. Hey, I'm here. Acknowledge me. But again, we think it's something far removed from us. But we're, as he said, we're closer than we could ever think, as we're part of the creator. But we've never been really confident enough within our own understanding to start applying that. And I think the acknowledging is part of bringing that or cementing that a little closer together. You wouldn't acknowledge something that you not confirming in a way, or didn't believe in, or maybe you would, I don't know. So we're going to play with that a little bit more. And of course, as I said, he mentioned love about 90 times in this last workshop. So if you're, yes, investigating love, he said, we're just starting to understand. We need to understand the emotions and how they're created and how we can sort of use them to create other things in a way. But it's for you to trigger it. I'm certainly trying to do something with my own structure. I don't think I have the capabilities of, until I understand it, to share properly. As Mr. Keshe says, I don't teach anything I haven't done. So apparently he's done quite a few things. But we're all teachers and we're all students. So no problem sharing what you think you understand.
Wow, that was excellent, Mark. Thank you so much. And thanks everybody for allowing me to continue on this. And I really appreciate your presence and your input here because we're all teachers and students, as Mark said, all the time. So let's keep it going.
Okay, anything else from anyone else? they'd like to share?
The way I understood from that, the love, the way he was talking about something was so simple and so small that it's like we're missing it. Do you know what I'm talking about? Because he mentioned it so many times.
Do you want to elaborate on that? What do you mean something so small and we're missing it?
When he was talking about love,
Okay. I think you muted your mic, I think, or you dropped out.
yeah, I did. The way he was talking about love, like so many times, and then the way it sounded to me that it was so simple to understand it and to do it and to say it, I guess, to give, and it's so simple that we need to be beat up on to get it. Does that make sense? When you go to like to that section, I've been listening over it, quite a few times, and just the way he says it, that the love, the little love, and then I guess I'll have to go back to it just to make sure that I know what he's talking about. It's just the way we understand the love to give so small, so little, it'll just give us so much more. Um,
Okay, you'll get more response with the honey than the vinegar.
yeah, yes.
And apparently this goes from everything we interact with, including the creator. That acknowledgement is something happens apparently in the plasmatic dimension when you sort of acknowledge or confirm that you love, and the creator has fallen in love with every one of the creations, apparently. Maybe different strengths or different things, but I think he's fallen in love with everything. And I know Mr. Keshe brought a teaching about that where the guy can't even get any work done because he's falling in love with his pen or the paper or the cup that's holding his coffee, and he can't get anything done because he's so in love with everything. And I know Mr. Keshe talked about this, creating this emotion of love, and I believe it'll be where we all start to fall in love with each other and everything. And this is, I think, a dimension of the creator, as opposed to what we read in the holy books where the creator is a destroyer and this and that. Not true, I don't believe. This has been all sort of foisted on us to give us a misunderstanding of the behavior of the creator, which again we can reflect as we start to realize it more and more, that we are made in the image. So this is our closest twin, I think. But yeah, you can go through this workshop. There's 90 different instances of love that he sort of referenced, and there may be loving and some other words in there as well.
Yeah, it seems like the more you go over it, the different things you hear. It's amazing.
So no worries that we haven't fully opened up this workshop, because this will go on for decades and centuries into the future. At least some of the workshops, probably most of them. So there's much in these teachings. Again, but I think through the cosmic ray technology, the teachings will become embedded within your structure for easy recall once this energy dimension starts to come into play in the One Nation Network. You'll have easy access to what you're looking for just by thinking about it, perhaps. Again, it's beyond our imagination what sort of technologies are going to be brought out in this whole process. But as he said, more than understanding the technology is understanding the ethos. Because also, as was indicated, if we give you the technology without the elevation of the soul, within one generation or two, 20 years, 40 years, you'll be right back in the same behavior. So it's all about the elevation of the soul. And that's what all the products and the teachings and everything else. It's not the end all, but it's to get us to the next level or sort of next plateau in this whole process. that we create a permanent peaceful condition on this planet, and then the souls don't carry that killing and destruction into the next creation. So there's a maturing of souls going on this planet, as opposed to what we've been conditioned to or what we've been used to. Many things will change as the period comes along. But again, whether it's next year or next week, we'll have to see. And a lot of that depends on what the governments do and what the knowledge seekers do as well. Just asking us to support and help develop the whole structure. They seem to be handling everything in the background without giving us much detail. Okay, any other thoughts or questions, or I'll play the final disclaimer and the meeting will come to an end? If there's no other comments, thoughts, thank you all for joining us today. We appreciate your presence, and again, be kind and acknowledge someone else. You may have a bigger impact on them and yourself than you could ever imagine. Just with that smile, that word, the holding of the door, the acknowledgement of the person, because that's what I've always heard, that we're all hungry for recognition. And this is what he's saying that this love does, is confirms the existence of the other entity. That's the whole reason the creator created Mitra, to confirm, and found that match. Okay, anything else before we close? Thank you all again for being here. We'll continue on this path. And again, this is for ourselves, but also we're gifting this this whole understanding in a way to humanity as well, that we can join with the larger family, which we've been isolated from, even perhaps before the moon landing and everything else. All right, let me just make sure we're sharing this properly. Thank you, Alex, and thank each and every one of you for being here. Your presence is appreciated and acknowledged. So we'll play this and we'll move on and pass that on to the others. Again, I'm looking forward to hearing some of these sort of testimonies as people start to work with this, confirming and acknowledging others' existence in a way, or really the creator. Thank you all, and have an amazing rest of your day. We'll see you in one of the future sessions. Anything else again? If not, we'll see you soon.
Disclaimer. The information and education material contained herein is meant to promote the general understanding and dialogue of GAN's processing. Such information is not meant or intended to serve as a substitute for a healthcare professional's clinical training, experience, or judgment. For patients and individuals, such information is not to be a substitute for professional medical, therapeutic, or healthcare advice or counseling. For medical issues or concerns, including decisions about medications and other treatments, readers, viewers, listeners should always consult their physician or, in serious cases, seek immediate assistance from emergency personnel. Prescription information, procedures, and use of medical devices information should be undertaken only by properly trained and certified medical personnel. We specifically disclaim any warranties, express or implied, including implied warranties of merchantability or fitness for a particular purpose. Such information is provided, as is, and is believed to be accurate at the time of its publishing, but it is the viewer's job to evaluate the accuracy of any information found in this presentation. Every case presented is of their own experience, applied by themselves for themselves, and it applies to their case only. Every person experiencing health problems should seek professional medical advice and consult their course of treatment with a doctor. The processes of plasma balancing described herein are a natural process which supports the body but does not replace medical advice or therapies one is already subject to.